Hello Guardians, I'm KellOfKels, and welcome to the Loom, where we explore the tales woven into the very fabric of our equipment in Destiny 2. In this episode, we'll enjoy the lore within the Eidolon Pursuant armor from Season of the Haunted. So settle in Guardians, grab your favourite beverage, get comfortable, and immerse yourself in the sights, sounds, and stories found throughout the Destiny universe. Savathun is rigid and lifeless beneath the edge of Eris's scalpel as it begins a Y incision. With each careful removal of a chitin plate, she expects the Witch Queen's muscles to shudder, her eyes to roll open, her claws to cleave Eris in twain as retaliation. Rigid, lifeless, nothing to fear. Below the skull, protected by plated scale and fraying hive enchantment, Eris sees the symbol of the Witch Queen. She peels back muscle and shaves away surrounding tissue for a clearer view of the fading mark etched into Savathun's encephalon organ with soulfire script. Only then does she see the embellishments adorning the mark. They bring to mind the runic symbols carved into the crown of sorrow. She catalogues the embellishments on a data pad, noting the similarities before continuing her examination, confident in her initial findings regarding a link to the crown. A link to the crown. A lock many have tried to pick. Now Eris holds the key, from the mind of Savathun herself. Eris Morn chalks the floor in the helm wing previously inhabited by the servitor of the Elixni Splicers. A liberated tomb ship drones beside her. Through the open, shielded hangar, the Leviathan is visible as a malformed knot, its shape bulging from the shadowed outline of the moon. Ikora descends the stairs. An ornately dressed warlock Athanasia follows, their robes trimmed in bone and elaborately stitched symbols. "Did you commandeer this from Mars?" Ikora asks with a smile, looking out over the hive vessel. Eris stands. It provided ample shielding for transporting the crown from its vault. "It's here now?" the Athanasia asks, breaking his stride at the bottom of the stairs. "Worry not. The helm will disembark from the city to ensure the crown is contained," Eris answers. "Keep that tomb ship docked here in case we need to jettison the crown. Last thing I need is a rookie shooting you down in it." Ikora steps past the Athanasia with a reassuring nod. "Tell us what you're thinking next, Eris." Eris gestures toward the open bay door. "The Leviathan is at our doorstep. Even if we unravel Callus's plan, the ship itself still poses a threat simply by its size. Callus does not require paracausal power to cause an extinction-level event. Callus's interest appears to be focused solely on the pyramid," Ikora interjects. "Should that change, Zavala assures me that Kaido's fleet will provide ample dissuasive firepower." Eris nods, in rhythm with Ikora's well-reasoned words. "I trust that to be true. However, whatever connection Callus has established is drawing nightmares and phantoms alike to the Leviathan. He is able to exert influence over them, but I believe we can disrupt this connection." She points to the Athanasia. "You," she says, and motions toward 3 chalked spots on the floor. "Here, here, and here. We will require death anchors to tether the ritual. Hold your mind on the brink for as long as you can, and I will craft the sigils required to contain the crown. Then, we will need volunteers." "You've had this for years and never thought to mention it?" Eris runs her fingers over the grime-clouded containment glass, housing a large growth of egregore within the Drifter's derelict. "Wasn't hiding it." Drifter rolls Eris's Ahamkara bone over his knuckles. "Ain't nobody ever asked. Hell, you've walked by it before, Moondust." "What wonders you must have buried in this heap," Eris muses. The emerald shine of her eyes dart back and forth behind thin cloth. I could, Drifter saunters up beside her, give you the tour? We haven't the time. Tell me, what have you learned from this egregore sample? The Drifter wrinkles his face and looks up to the massive contained growth. Eris massages annoyance from her brow. She sees the playful coyness in his eyes, the hidden information he holds as bargain for some trade. Do you at least remember where you found it? Sister, you don't want to know. Eris locks her eyes onto the Drifter's face. He staggers back awkwardly and shrugs. I see little nothing in the middle of nowhere. Doesn't have a name, and you don't want to go there alone. But you could take me. Eris tests his defences. Drifter brushes off the mottled fur of his shoulder guards and leans against a poorly fastened railing. Only if we take your jump ship. And I drive. Eris sighs and pushes through him. No. Drifter springs after her. So that's it? You're leaving? You're being evasive, rat. Eris plucks her Ahamkara bone from his hand and stows it beneath her cloak. Contact me when you're willing to speak plainly. Drifter calls after her, hands outstretched. You don't want to stay for dinner? Eris halts, considering what disgusting amalgamation of refuse would constitute a meal here. She glances over her shoulder, one last attempt to extract information. It is strange. When Savathun drew Mars back into our space, it was free of the egregore, but the Glycon and the Leviathan both returned rampant with fungal growth. Why? She asks. He gives in. You know, it sings if you burn it just right. Drifter thumbs behind him. Subsonic. Resonates in a funny way with pyramid tech. Is that so? You don't trust me? Elsie is not at camp and beyond. Perhaps another time. But Eris emerges from Transmat to see the Drifter alone, interrogating Elsie's strange floating companion. Well? What are you? Drifter points at the thing with distrust. Leave it be. The ziggurat awaits our experiment, Eris says, saddling a mostly materialized sparrow and blasting off into the snow across the frozen European flats. And don't touch my stuff! She hears Drifter shout at the thing as he follows after her. Frigid sleet stings Eris's face red atop the ziggurat. It is a welcome sensation compared to the prickling numbness that sticks her fingers. She grips a harvested stalk of the egregore fungus tightly in one gloved hand. In the other, a hot flare disgorges plumes of jade smoke. She lights the stalk at both ends, according to the Drifter's instruction. Ashing spores furl into dense clouds that envelop her body, obscuring her sight in soot-black shroud until it blocks out all else. Faint whispers. A choral swell through turbulent winds. Tone that forms words across the surface of her mind. You hear it? Drifter asks, his voice a whisper outside her awareness. The ziggurat resonates like a tuning fork. The vibrations themselves take shape within the smoke, and Eris is drawn towards somewhere distant and empty. She follows, and the smoke swirls with points of colour like stars, separated by lonely rifts of black expanse. Echoes radiate from the black deep, like graviton ripples through space. They wash distortion over the stars until breaking against 4 other points, 2 greater, 2 weaker, ghostly strands of incorporeal egregore between them. She then sees the pyramids of Europa, Luna, and Savathun's throne world as one. Their structures melded and overlapping. The connections cauterize in her mind like a vivid memory. Eris blinks, and the sensation is gone. The stalk is ash in her hand. You want to go where? Drifter's jump ship idles roughly behind him, the engine misfiring and clattering loudly as if ready to explode. Eris's ship purrs next to it in contrast. There is a connection between the points of darkness, signals passing back and forth to something beyond. Eris steps closer so her voice carries over the engine noise. The other pyramids may provide more context. The drifter clicks his tongue and raises his eyebrows. Sounds a mite dangerous with Big Daddy Callus parking right over the moon. Seems off limits. Yes, but the Guardian leads raiding parties into Rolk's pyramid in Savathun's throne world. We will use that distraction. And with that, Eris shoulders through him and trudges to her ship. Come, rat. Can we eat first? Explosions thunder within the throne world's pyramid as Eris and Drifter establish a camp in the sunken bog where miasma meets the pyramid's approach. The massive ship eclipses them, towering in fog, the extent of its edges unknown to their eyes. Drifter's face is stern, clenched with a tension Eris has seldom seen. Trust in one hand, fistful of stasis in the other. Eris sets a cloth-wrapped stalk of egregore upon a pyramid shard jutting from the stinking swamp. She unwraps and neatly spreads the corners of the cloth before noticing the drifter's footsteps behind her. Something's watching us, Drifter mutters. He turns to his altered ghost and whispers softly enough to convince himself that Eris cannot hear him. Keep your eye on her, eh? Then, louder. I'm gonna look around. Make sure that hotshot hero didn't miss any screebs. The drifter's altered ghost emits a single elongated tone in acknowledgement, and then focuses on Eris. Jermaine. He stops. Eris knows his concern belies a nobility that he often attempts to suppress in favour of the persona of the drifter. It is a ruddy shield, but she has seen the true him hidden under that layer of grime. May I have a light? You got it. He discharges a solar round from his trust that sparks on the pyramid floor and ignites the egregore stalk. Back in a flash. Eris watches him disappear into the swamp, then focuses on the pluming egregore. Eris sits, exhausted, on a warm cushion in the dirt. The drifter stands over a hazardously large fire, scooping some sweet-smelling funk of a stew from a cauldron-like vessel of hive design. Her face scrunches as he places a chunky bowl of thick, greyish-brown pottage in her hands. What did you find? Drifter asks, slurping from his bowl. Eris tests the temperature and flavour of this food against her lips. It is something like the stinking brined cheeses Ikora had given her on her last visit to the city, but with earthy depth beneath. Her face curls, and she opts instead for conversation. I was right, they are connected. But now, I only have more questions. You ask me, that's how these things go. Better leave well enough alone and head home, Drifter says, slurping another mouthful. The egregore connects points of darkness, resonates with pyramid constructs, but I cannot decipher their communications. Still, the Lunar Pyramid, the European Pyramid, both Glykon and Leviathan all converse with the same distant point. What Rolk spoke to, so does Callus. It is gravely concerning. Wild, Drifter says with a whistle. He shakes his head and looks at her full bowl. You gonna eat that? Eris wonders if he heard her correctly, but knows repeating herself is an exercise in futility. What is this, exactly? Pretty damn tasty is what it is. First time I got it right. Thought you'd appreciate someone cooking for you since you're awful at it. Rat, what are you feeding me? She remembers his hunt earlier in the day, and her stomach turns. Eris stares at the drifter, mouth agape in a half-heaved gag, her thoughts racing over the things he's claimed to have consumed. You cooked me rotted screebs. What? Drifter chokes on the stew and coughs. I wouldn't feed you that crap moon dust, he laughs. You never had crawdad stew? He holds the bowl to his lips. Or a close cousin to it, he adds under his breath. Little swamp shrimps, you dig? It's a delicacy. Eris reels her imagination in, takes a breath, and sips the broth without taking her eyes from the drifter. The liquid fills her crumpled stomach with hearty warmth. She feels her stress melt away. The stew's flavour is far more pleasing than its smell. She smiles and drinks again. Thank you. It is good. Thanks for joining me on this episode of The Lore Loom. I hope you enjoyed diving into the stories behind the Eidolon Pursuant armor from Season of the Haunted. If you did, feel free to give the video a thumbs up, subscribe for more Destiny 2 lore content, and ding the notification bell. Until our tales converge once more, Guardians, know that I appreciate you, and we'll see you in the next chapter.